Hi all and welcome into this iRacing video, which I've called iRacing's Tips, Tricks, Software and Overlays. I get a lot of questions from you guys regarding everything from how I calculate fuel, frame rate settings, performance settings, the spotter I use, overlays, how I customize them, where I get my setups from, how I plan my week, what cars do I buy, how do I choose them. So I thought I'd go through a list answering every question you've got, discussing everything I use in the background that helps me with my iRacing. Now I've, over the time, crafted various techniques and things to save me time, reduce errors, reduce problems, increase performance, everything I can to dial it in best for me. So I figured I'd share that now in this video. Okay, first things first, let's move on to Crew Chief. Now Crew Chief, if I had to give it an alternate name, would be the missing app from iRacing. The spotter in iRacing is fine, basic. I'm not sure I use it other than the written word on the screen. Crew Chief is the spotter that was missing from iRacing. So let's get into that now. It's a relatively small app that once installed lets you choose, as you can see here in the top right, what game that you want to run it in. Obviously mine's set to iRacing. Now this app is as simple as opening, keep making sure everything's up to date with regards to the sound pack, the driver's names, and all the personalizations that you can customize. But out of the box, this app is going to work great with iRacing. So you select iRacing here, and you hit start.
Radio check.
He fires up, so you can hear him to make sure you've got the volume right. And here you can dial in your levels that you want. That's more on you. You can see my settings there and how I use it. Now, I will come back to Crew Chief because I want to show you some more advanced features, but I just want to give you an introduction, and it will be better to discuss when I'm discussing a different app. So let's move on to the overlay I use, Kapps or Kapps. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Okay, this quite simply is an overlay that sits on top of iRacing. The iRacing overlays are fine, but once again, I wanted more. I wanted to get more information. So I will jump into a session now and you guys can take a look. Okay, here we are in a session and I have Kapps running. As you can see in the bottom right we have the relative screen. Next to that,
fastest lap for White, 119.53.
Next to that we have the tyre temps. In the top left we have the standings. There is another screen, bear with me and I will show you. In the bottom left, there you go, you can see the fuel calculator, which I use obviously to calculate fuel when I need to pit, how much fuel I need to put in. If I'm doing a practice session, I want to calculate what I'm going to need for the race based on how many laps. Hello? Yep, so that is fantastic. I couldn't be without Kapps. I used iRacing in the beginning, but if you look back through my previous videos, it's really helped me. Top right, we have the track map. I'll get into that a bit later, how that works. And there are settings galore for Kapps to really customize it how you want, showing what their I rating is, what their safety rating is, how many each lap delta they are either gaining or losing you, car numbers, names, abbreviated names. It's fantastic. It's acquired through a Twitch Prime subscription to a user that I will put down in the description. Everything I mention in this video will be down in the description, so don't worry about that. So yeah, I mean, I'm not big on understanding Twitch, but if a YouTuber like me could navigate it, I'm sure you'll be fine too. It's a nominal fee for what you're getting, and he's a great guy. I contacted him on Twitter regarding a feature I'm going to show you later in the video, just like Crew Chief, that I'm really happy with, that makes my life a lot easier. Okay, Kapps Settings. I will bring the screen across. Alright, as you can see, there are plenty. Now this is the racing overlay section. I'm not going to go through every setting. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on the kind of thing you can do with it. You can customize all the opacity. It's fully featured, really easy to use, and all you hit to launch it once this app's open is this open in a new window button, and then you can shut that away. Okay, next up is something I've been really pleased with. It's called the iRacing Manager. Now, let me jump out of this one sec. Okay, it's this. Quite simple, very simple looking. It manages starting up apps that you want once it detects iRacing is open. Now, that was great and all when I got it. The VRS kicked in, Kapps opened, Crew Chief opened. But obviously Crew Chief wasn't starting, it was just open. It hadn't kicked in, the Crew Chief wasn't started. And while Kapps was opening, it was just opening the Kapps settings screen waiting for me to launch it. So both these windows were hanging around when I opened iRacing. I would have the alt tab in between them. It would be... I'm sure it's what everybody does, but being a developer, I wanted to push it a little bit further, so I dug around in all the settings, contacted the owner of Kapps on Twitter, and I managed to get exactly what I want. Let me show you. Okay, so here in the settings, you would pick what app you would want to add to what program you'd want to boot when iRacing boots. But the important thing I want you to add is this: open-racing-overlay space null. What this does, starts Kapps for you, so it doesn't just open the app, it kicks in the overlay for you. And down here, start hidden, well, this would do it for you anyway, but it minimizes the app as well, gets it out of the way. Crew Chief, however, can't be done through here. This is how you launch Crew Chief. Obviously, you just link to the app here, which is great. Select Start Stop with iRacing and Start Hidden, which is fantastic. However, if we head over to Crew Chief, what I want you to do, let's go to Properties. UI Startup and Paths. Minimize on startup, you're going to want to check that. Run immediately, you're going to want to check that. And the mixture of the two. Let me jump out and show you. So I'll leave this session. I'll close Crew Chief. Get rid of that for the moment. I will make sure Kapps isn't running. Done. Okay, so now what we'll do is just jump in a test session and you can see how it opens. So I've just got the iRacing Manager here. Okay, launching Sim. And what we're hoping this achieves is we have a Kapps overlay running and Crew Chief pre-started the second we join the session. No hassle, never forgetting it. I've seen countless YouTubers have to forget to run their Crew Chief. I've seen people messing around with Kapps. You know, just after qualifying, it's all a big rush. You know, being inherently lazy is great for stuff like this. Right, bear with me while it fires up and you'll see what we've got. Once you've been running it as long as I have, it just feels like it's part of iRacing, once you get it set up this way. Once again, I'll link down iRacing Manager, link in the description. And just make sure you pause the part of the video if you... I'll leave the arguments down in the set and in the description on how to get Kapps to open the overlay, but bear with me. Okay, so I haven't pressed anything.
Radio check.
Kapps is launched, so we get our little blue overlays, and we heard Crew Chief talk. So as soon as we start the car, we're good to drive. We have our overlays kicked in. We have Crew Chief running. You know, it's just, and with the start stop hidden, once we exit this session, both apps will close themselves. Now, you know, you can't beat that. It makes it so much easier. It's something I'm really pleased with. Okay, next up is SetupSync. Now, I have mentioned this in another video, but so I'm not going to go into in depth. I'll link it in the description, or I'll put a card on the screen so you can read more about it. But I still use it. I still worthy it mentioning in this video on mentioning all softwares I use. It's pretty simple how it works. You put together a list of tracks and cars. It's just updating, bear with me. This gives you access to hundreds of setups from everybody running this app to use. So you subscribe to cars. Sorry, let me slow down a bit. Subscriptions. Tick all the cars that you use or you'd want setups for. So I've got like 6 or 7 ticked. Tracks, I just tick them all. Once you hit find subscribed, you hit download. There's an install button. It installs them. And then inside your iRacing screen where you navigate my setups and you use the setups, there'll be a SetupSync folder. You click on it and you'll have access to hundreds of setups. You won't need to leave iRacing. You can jump between them. It's quite something fantastic. Okay, once you got to the garage, navigate to My Setups, SetupSync for the BMW, pick a track. It doesn't matter, so just look inside the Bathurst folder. I have a setup downloaded. Spa, I have quite a few setups downloaded. Road America, a setup downloaded. So that app syncs setups to your PC from other people using the app who save their setups and upload. It's a fantastic resource, especially when you're trying to dial in your car. You can take a look at other people's setups, try it out for yourself, find some middle ground, dial the settings in, and get a better knowledge of how to set up a car at the same time as learning from the best. So I wouldn't go without the app. It's been a fantastic resource for me, and I'm really happy. Okay, next up, I'm sure you saw in the iRacing Manager, VRS. Now, I use VRS all the time for lap analysis. Let's get the app open. Bear with me. Okay, we have VRS open. As you can see, I'm logged in. You pick a season, pick a circuit that you want to analyze, pick a car you was driving. So I've just randomly picked a Skip Barber Brands Hatch earlier in the week. You can look at your setups that you used. You can look at your fastest lap times. There's tons of information here. That's great and all. What I use it for is my lap analysis. So we'll pick a lap. So let's pick this one, 43.1. Terrible lap. This is just some random session I picked. Let's pick this here. So there's a nice big time deficit here. Okay, and this is what it lets you do. Let's get this open a bit more. You can look at your sector analysis based on your time lost and gains, speed, throttle, braking zones, how your trail braking's doing, steering angle, oversteering to understeering. Here you can see your entries and exits to bend. You can see the gears you're using. You can progress time through and see when the downshifts happen. It's fantastic. I mean, if you can look at the full track outlet overlay, let that just load. Here we go. So this is looking at the lap as a full, so I wouldn't analyze it like this. You want to look where you're getting sector losses. So here, losing 0.18 of a second. And we can see here I was very late on the throttle this time round, so probably lost a lot of time here. And as you can see up here, my relative speed was a lot less. A slight change in power here. Looks like too much steering angle. It's fantastic. If you've got a friend that you're analysing with, or you're analysing off your own laps, it's a resource that if you're trying to find time on the track, I don't know a resource like it. It's something I've been using for a long time now. Can't go without it. If iRacing had it, I wouldn't need to use it, but iRacing doesn't, so I live on Virtual Race School. It's been there with me since the beginning, and I have no complaints. Okay, on to the next. We're going to look at a week planner. Okay, here we have open the iRacing-week-planner.tmo.ll. I don't know the name because it's a fantastic resource for planning out your weeks. If you have multiple series, it's a resource I couldn't be without. I use it every day. Once again, it's a missing thing in iRacing. They've got their tools, but not for time progression and a general overlay like this. This is brilliant. First thing you're going to want to do, set the cars you own, tracks you own rather. It lists all the free ones. Just add the tracks that you own. Same to do with the cars. You can set your favorites, but just get this done first, the setting. On the left hand side, pick what you're interested in analysing, whether it's road overall. You can have multiple ticked, which is fine. Pick your licenses, so as you can see I've unticked rookie here where I was last looking. You can untick unofficial sessions. You can tick, obviously, this is what I like. iRacing, the owned facility doesn't work very well at all. If you say only owned, it will show you an or, not an and. If you don't own one of the tracks or you don't own one of the cars, it will still show you it. Very frustrating. Whereas this works perfectly. So as you can see, this week I've got a whole host of races that I'm in. Obviously, I'm going to be running the BMW, the Formula Sprint, and the Skip. If I get around to doing the Porsche and the F3, that's great. You can skip back in time, forward in time. Really helps plan out, especially when I'm running 3 series. I couldn't be without this resource. Also, it's quite handy when you're looking to come buy a track or buy a car. Now, there are other resources, but because I've got all this set up, I use this. What I do is I mark some favorites that I'm considering buying. It brings it into here where I use favorite series only, favorite car only, untick those, and I can map out what I'm looking to buy. And it helps me make a decision at the end of the season what I'm going to look at getting. Okay, next is a few tips and tricks. So we're going to jump into a session and I'm going to show you them now. Okay, this trick I actually learned from a forum. I for the life of me can't work out where, but this is a missing tip that I wish I'd known when I got iRacing first of all. Now I'm sure when you first jump in a car, you head over to, where is it? Bear with me. Here, and you can change your shift horizon, you can up your driver height, you mess with the force feedback, you probably mess with the field of view to get it right for the car you're driving. You jump in a different car, and now the settings are not where you're going to want them to be. Also, you shouldn't be really messing with your field of view at all. Once you've dialed it in from your distance, your screen widths, all the details, bezels, you want to leave that. Your driver height, I leave mine at 0. I'm going to show you how. Shift horizon, I leave at 6. And we'll get into that now, exactly how I do that. How it works. Jump in a car. You can sit in the pit. Jump back out of the car. Sounds a bit stupid, I know. Give it a pause. Pick the cockpit view. Control F12. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen this before when you're messing together or putting a replay or looping back through an old lap. But the cockpit view, customize the settings to here. You can drag the car back, forward, up, down, adjust the shift horizon, essentially. Now notice when I go back in the car and forward in the car, I'm not changing the field of view. I'm changing my position within the car. Now this is crucial. Doubly crucial is that you can click save. Now, as you can see, I've got a few presets. Brands Hatch I like to sit high. Road Atlanta I like to sit low, and then I've got more of a default. Once you save that setting there, when you jump back in the car, these settings here will persist. So whether you're in a Mazda, an F3, the BMW, the settings that you use will persist. So if you like running right up, so your steering wheel feels like it's butted against the real steering wheel, you hit test. As you can see, this has persisted. We can drive. Now this would be saved if we restarted the session. So let's come back out. The only reason I say pause it is because when you're dialing your settings in, you don't want the car moving. Well, I don't. So let's load my default. Hit test. Punches back out. I get the view that I was working with. As you can see, everything's great. Now, this means you can leave your driver height at 0, your shifter horizon at 6, and your field of view all correct, and have a saved preset for each car that you don't have to worry about. And as you saw in the BMW, you can save based on different requirements. Some tracks, you know, Brands Hatch and Road Atlanta are good examples of steep hills where you might want to make minor adjustments to the car just to give yourselves that competitive advantage on vision. I find it really useful, and I wish I'd knew about it when I first started, because I used to quite literally write down on a post-it note how I would dial in different cars. Okay, next up are going to be some general tips and tricks that I want to make sure you've got right on your PC, because I had to learn the hard way. I had to do all the research, so guys, I just want to save you the time. First things first, game mode on Windows 10. I've got mine off. Now let me explain why. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. On, if you're running iRacing in full screen. Off, if you're running iRacing not in full screen. If you're streaming, recording, or anything else with iRacing, make sure it's off also. Now why is that? Game mode prioritizes the game. Sounds simple. So if you're running the game in full screen and you've got nothing else happening, have it on. You will gain a benefit from it. If you're recording the race using OBS or Streamlabs or anything else out there and you have game mode on, you're not getting a benefit, because resources are being unallocated to Streamlabs and OBS, and they're not going to run as performant. And if you're not running iRacing in full screen, leave it off as well. You're gaining no benefit, and it could misinterpret what the game is, what's running, whether it's something in the background. It's not something you're going to want to see happen. So I run mine off because I'm using triple screen in a non-full screening way. So make sure it's off. Next up is Crew Chief's auto fuel. Now we've jumped to and fro with Crew Chief, but that goes to show how important it is to me. Now this isn't a feature I use all that much because I use my fuel calculator, but I do get questions about it, so I did want to show you guys. You can enable the iRacing auto refueling when enter pits. Now it's obviously useful for anyone jumping from fixed to something where you're making your first pit stop. It needs dialing in, practice with it, because you have to put a lot of faith in it. Now I have seen other people add additional fuel just to make sure it's correct, but just be mindful. If you're running the first stint in your race and you're in tow for 90% of the time, you're not going to be burning as much fuel. Maybe in stint 2, where you're not in any tow, you're in open track, you'll be burning a lot more fuel. Now, crew chief isn't going to take that into consideration, so whether you want to add additional fuel here or have a fuel calculator to complement it, look, this is fine. Lots of people get by with you. I just wanted to explain the reason why I use it, but use the fuel calculator to make the adjustments that I want to make. It's there for me as a safety net in case I make a mistake, but it's not my primary method of refueling. Next up is a few graphical performance tips that I want to make sure that are understood. Don't use VSync or vertical sync or anything here. You can see it's disabled here. While it may give the monitor appearance of no tearing, because that's its job, input lag. Now, on an action game or a 2D jumping game, that might be fine. A game where we're using a steering wheel for precision and feedback, input lag couldn't be a more worse enemy. So don't use it. The best way to combat frame tearing, the experience of a line appearing on your screen, is make sure that you're buffering enough away from your monitor's frame rate. So I'm using 60s, so I have 83, about 23 frames above the monitor's frame rate. Now this applies to 144 Hertz, 90 Hertz monitors, same thing. Now you need to be able to hit those frames. Setting this won't do anything if you're cranking your settings too much that you don't achieve the 83. So dial your settings in that you can get to that 83, test it with several cars on the track, test it, just make sure you understand where your frame rate is, and make sure you keep that away. You never want to prioritize quality over performance, especially in a race sim. Looking pretty is one thing. Everything working smoothly, no frame tearing, no stutters, that's the priority. Well, it's my priority. I'm just trying to help you guys. And obviously on the topic of performance and stuttering, make sure nothing's running in the background, especially something like Chrome. It doesn't really matter how much RAM you have or how powerful your GPU is or how many cores you have on the processor. Chrome is quite able to eat up a lot of those resources and cause stutters in the background, especially with if you're anything like me and you've got 15 to 16 tabs open at any one time. So that is definitely something to look out for, and just make sure you're closing any especially GPU intensive apps, whether it's Photoshop or Premiere Pro or anything like that you've got running in the background. Keep it clean in the background when you're running iRacing, and you'll reap the benefits. Okay, next up is to do with regards to fixed setup races. Now, this is something I wish I knew. First 6 or 7 races I didn't change my car, didn't change fuel, didn't change anything, obviously, because you can't change it. One thing I didn't realize you can change. Now, if you know this, that's great. I'm just making sure all of you know this. Brake biases can be changed.
125.01.
Enough spotter. Right, your brake bias can be changed, which is fantastic. It means there are differences between the cars. If you've ever wondered, the car in front of me seems to have a short braking distance, this can be true. Now this can also be done during the race. Let's pull away. You can see I'm adjusting my brake bias. Now I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. I'd recommend mapping some buttons on your steering wheel to increase and decrease.
All clear on pit exit.
Now obviously you do need to be expert to be changing it during the race, but sometimes there is a reason. If there's a long bend and a short fast bend, adjustments on brake bias can make you faster. I usually go for more consistency rather than changing it during the race, but I just want to make sure you all understand that that can be done. Okay, last but not least, moving the iRacing overlays. I get this question a lot. Press Alt-K, and as you can see, a lot of stuff has gone blue. Click and drag, an overlay, Alt-K, and it's back. Now obviously I don't have the relative screen or the standing screen, but this works for everything. So my actual rear view mirror has been moved up, I moved the 4x, 2x screen, I moved basically everything. My pedal cam here is pushed up against my webcam there. It's how I get different information on different screens. It's a fantastic little resource that Once again, you have to dig around in the settings of iRacing to make sure you know. Okay, I think I've covered everything to do with tips, tricks, setup, and overlays. The biggest one for me is the auto starting crew chief, Kapps, VRS. Means I never forget them. I never have to remember them. I dialed in all the settings on crew chief, how I want it set up. Then there's a plethora of settings. Make sure you go through. Make sure it's how you want it set up. Kapps, once again, there are hundreds of setups. That how you want it look, font size, whether you want it off screen, whether you want it, I mean, have a play. It's definitely worth the resource. A few honourable mentions for some pieces of software I don't use or I've stopped using, and that would be JRT, Joel's Real Timing, Joel's Real Timer, yeah, I believe it's called, Z1 Dashboard, and Trading Paints. I like Trading Paints. I got rid of it after I had a problem with it. Once again, I focus purely on performance and not on quality, but your guys might vary. It's a fantastic app, all of those are, so make sure you check them out. Alright guys, if you like this video and you'd like to see me do more, then hit the like button, and if you want to watch the regular scheduled races, which I'll be doing again soon, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Alright guys, catch you in the next one.